Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and welcome to the second video regarding the Vue CLI build. First thing we're going to do is just kind of get acquainted with how to use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of some stuff. So I'm going to go in here, let's delete, well, let's not delete it quite yet. Let me just think about this for a second. Anything I really want to make sure I remember from here. Everything's pretty much the same deal. So let's just delete the Vue component. Let's just delete app. Okay. And build it from scratch. We're going to build this from scratch so you can see how this works. Okay. And essentially what you need are three things on this page. Template. That's where we're going to put our HTML template. Okay, it's going to complain for a bit. We're going to need our script tag. That's where we're going to put our JavaScript. And then we need our style tag. That's where we're going to put our CSS for this component. Now, the main thing we need to add is kind of our Vue instance, which is always exported. So export default, then just export default, and then you just export an object. Okay. Essentially takes that object and turns it and passes it in to a new Vue component. Cool. So we need a name of the component, which this has to be the app because it's our app component. It's the place where everything starts. So we kind of need that there. Okay, so there's the name of our component. Here's the template of our component. And we'll just start with something simple. H1 hello world. Okay, and then that's that. Okay, and then we might as well just do a quick style just so you can see the style works here. H1, we'll just say the color is green. There we go. So that's, see, nothing crazy in there. It's just template, your HTML, your JavaScript, and your CSS all in one file. Isn't that nice? Save. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to run the server. npm run serve. Let's get to, or I can just type it myself. npm run serve. Okay, and that'll run the server. And we should, if all was set up right, I should just be seeing hello world. So let's see here. Localhost 8080. And see, that's it. Okay. Again, just to recap what's going on here, going back to our index.html, so in our public folder, okay, there's this magical script tag that's not there yet because it gets injected during the build. Technically, when you're running the server, it's dynamically injecting that script tag in there. It's dynamically building out your website as you test it out. Okay, which is not very performant. That's why you need the final build. That's going to be much more smoother. Okay. But theoretically, there's some script tag up there that will be in your final product. And that script tag is where all your Vue code is. And it's saying, hey, essentially running what's inside this main.js, which basically it is creating a new Vue instance, which is just saying mount the app component where this Vue instance is targeting. Okay, so since it's targeting the app component, it's going to mount, or the app div, that's the div with app in it. Okay, it's going to inject the app component there. So it's going to inject it, this component right there. That's all that's happening. And then technically Babel is reading all these Vue files and turning them to like valid JavaScript. So that magic is done by the people at Vue who created the Babel plugin to translate these files into JavaScript. Thank them for doing that and making our lives easier. Okay. Okay. So with that, let's play with some other stuff. Let's play with data. Okay. Now data is slightly different because now we're not working in an instance, we're working in a component. In a Vue component, data has to be slightly different. Data is actually going to be a function. It has to be a function that returns an object. And the object is your data. Okay, so this object right here is your data. Okay, so we'll create a property called cheese, which will say Gouda. Okay, and then let's try interpolating that in there. So let's do an H2 now. Just like data in a normal, easy view instance from the first couple of videos, I could interpolate it like this. I should be able to just be like cheese. Okay. Oh, it's complaining. Component template should not contain exactly one root element. Ah, okay. So kind of like in React, they only want you to have one parent element. So that means I have to put like I'm going to wrap this all up in a div. So that way it doesn't complain. There we go. So see, there's only one parent element. It's still complaining. Let's see here. Component template should contain one. No, wait, let's go down here. We have a different problem. Oh, no, now it's compiling successfully. Good. Okay, so now let's take a look at the page. And there's Gouda. See, our data is working. Okay. But again, data is going to be slightly different. In just a pure view instance, data could just be an object. In this setup, when you're creating components, data has to be a function that returns the components. Otherwise, everything else is kind of the same. Okay. And you get a couple sort of new cool things you can do, which will be more visible as we create another component. So let's do this. Let's create a new component. I'm going to start another one here. I'm just going to delete this one that already exists. Okay. And then again, template. And what we're going to do is just move our h1 hello world here, or we'll say h1 goodbye world, so that we can tell it's this component. So there's our template. Then we have to create our script tag. Okay, export default, an object. Now the name of this component, we'll call it hello. Yeah, we'll just keep the same name, hello world. There's the name of the component. Okay, and then we'll put a style tag. Whoop-de-doo. So I'll save that one. Okay, and now I need to load that in here. In order to use it, I got to import it. So my script tag, I have to import hello world from, and then the relative URL. So it's in a folder called components, /hello world.view. Okay, and it's complaining at the moment. We'll get to it. Let's see what it's saying. Failed module error. Oh, it's just complaining that I haven't used it yet. That's fine. We'll get to that. Okay, now once I bring in the component, I gotta tell this view component that this component is in there. So in here, I'll put it after my data. We have to have components. I think this is an array. So then you put in the name of the components. Hello world. So that way it's aware of it. Okay, and then I should be able to use hello world here now. Okay. Looks like I might need to do a couple more tweaks. And let me just do this. Hello world is defined, but never used. Maybe I just have to do this. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so I pass it into components. And I don't see it there. So let's see here. Hello world. Components. My bad, not an array. It's actually components is an object, so that'd be like this. Hello world. Okay, there we go. And now that should work. Let's go back over here. And now we see goodbye world. So again, just to kind of recap, I create the component. So here's the component. I have to import it within my script tag. So that brings in the component. and then I have to pass in an object with my components. Okay, and then I can use it. Cool. So now you can break up your stuff across multiple components. Just keep in mind each one's self-contained. So this component only has access to the data here. This component can have its own data there. So you want to make sure that you don't put data that they both need somewhere where they, like, the easiest way to always think about it is always think there's app is the top of the tree, and then everything flows down. Okay, it's the same thing with React and Angular. You always kind of just want to think top down. So in that case, if it's information they both need, it should always be in the component that is higher. Okay, so if app needs the information and hello world needs the information, it should be in app's data. And then data can pass it to hello world. But how do you do that? You use what's called a prop. Okay? And so in that case, we have to add props here. Okay? Props. And then what you have to do is create an object. And that object will have your props. So let's say props. Let's pretend we're going to have a props. It's called, we want to share cheese. So I want to have a prop called cheese so that way we can receive cheese from the parent. Okay, cheese, which will just start out as an empty string. Oh, it doesn't like that. Cheese is not defined. Constructor. Or actually, I think this is where we need the array. Cheese. There we go. And then I think here, I can then pass in cheese. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll just do v bind cheese equals the value of cheese in our data. Okay, because we're binding this to that, which then sends this as a prop down to here, and then I should be able to do h2 cheese. Let's see here. And it doesn't like that. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, there's that whole one parent element again. So let me wrap this in a div. I think I'm used to that in React. You think I would just kind of gotten over it here. Okay. Save. Let's see where we're at now. Scroll down. Okay, looks like it's compiling fine. Okay, so let's go back over here. But I don't see cheese. So that means I didn't set up the prop right. Okay, props, cheese. Cheese. Maybe let's try a simple one. Cheese. Or I'm not binding it to a value, just say cheese equals Gouda. So I'm just passing in the string Gouda. Let's see here. No. Okay, so let's bring up the view tools. So take a look, see if we're actually passing everything down fine. So we have our root, which is nothing. Then we bring that down. There's our app component. Our app component, we do have data that equals cheese. And then we bring that down. We see that inside app, there's a hello world component. And there we have a props that's cheese. So we did pass it down. It's just not showing up. Let's see here. Div hello world Gouda. So then that makes me wonder, should this be maybe props.cheese? And let's see if that makes a difference. And no, it does not. Okay, it seems to be working now. The only difference I did is I just got rid of some spaces. So technically, yeah, so that's what it should look like. H2 cheese. So again, you can specify what props you're receiving, you're expecting. And again, a prop is something that shows up in the HTML tag. Okay, so you see that tag is called hello world. And that's how you would pass data from one component to its child component. Can't really pass the data back. Okay, so data's only going to move one direction. You don't have to have one component. You could literally build out your entire website and just here in this app component and just kind of have all your data, all your methods, all that stuff right in here. You could, but it does make life easier to break it up, makes your code easier to read. So, you know, you put your nav in a component, you know, um, and just break down your website by sections. And this also allows you to have multiple files, so that way if you're working in a team, you can share who's working on what part of the project, making life a lot easier. Okay, and this would be the same syntax you'd use to import any node libraries you bring in. Okay, but yeah, so basically that is the main thing. Let's just try something like a method. Okay, so let's see here, that's components. So now we want to do methods. Okay, and methods is going to be another object. And we'll just have handle click as a method. Function. Okay, handle click. And here in handle click, all we're going to do is just say this dot cheese becomes Munster. Okay, becomes the string Munster. Okay, Munster. And then we need a button to trigger that. So let's go back to our template, create a button. Click me. And then we're going to use just our normal V on click. And if you don't know what these things are, you should have watched my first 2 Vue videos where I go over these things. V on click, handle click. There we go. And that's pretty there. That should be good. So let's go back to our website. Now if I click this, it should change this to Munster. And it does. See, it changed the data to Munster and automatically updated. Now, let's try to bind our data again. So let's try this again. V bind cheese. And then I'm going to try to bind this to cheese again. Okay, and let's see if that does the trick. Okay, and see now they both became Munster. So if I refresh this page, they both start as Gouda. But then when I click this, see it changes the data to Munster in the app component. But again, the prop on Hello World, see that prop, cheese, I now bound it to the data on here. Okay, so that way when this data changes, it's automatically going to update this component here. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So it allows you to pass in all sorts of data. You can bind data from your parent component, so as the parent components change, the child components update too. It allows you to create like a waterfall of data. So you can store a bunch of data up top, move it to the components that need it, and only the components that need it end up updating as needed, instead of sort of the whole page. I'm trying to think of any other important points. Otherwise, everything else is the same. You can use your lifecycle functions, just put them inside your object. Again, just think of this object here as your Vue instance. And you just build out your project piece by piece. So the only other key things to kind of keep in mind, each component has to have a name. Any components inside that component need to be registered. Okay. And your data is no longer an object, but a function that returns an object. Okay, otherwise it works exactly the same way. Okay, and again, it's just the CSS styles you put in one component only apply to that component. This allows you to have components that only apply to that thing, so you don't have to worry about creating like a whole bunch of class names and whatnot. Let me see if they have like some sort of global CSS somewhere if you wanted it. I guess if you wanted to create a global CSS file, you could probably create one in this public folder and just do a link tag. But it's probably just easier to do it in component by component, so that way each component has its own flavor that's cohesive or whatnot. So yeah, and then I would push this up to GitHub after all my changes, and it would just reflect my updates. So if I hit Control C, I do git add, git commit -m, hello, git push origin master. Now that's going to should eventually go back to Netlify real quick. Netlify, log in. Here's my site. Should be deploying. So see, right now it's building. I just noticed the change in my GitHub. It's gonna rebuild, and when that's building, it should look like those changes I made, like hello world and stuff. So I'll just give it a second. And there's finished publishing. I'll go back to the page and see, now it reflects my changes, and I hit click me and it does a thing. So again, deploying it, once you set it up, the deployment is pretty easy. But you get this much more sort of robust setup that we're only really scratching the surface of all the new potential you have. We haven't even brought in other sort of Vue JSON libraries yet. So my name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.